Dear ladies and gentlemen, today is the 2nd of November, 4 p.m. Moscow time. Let me start the session of the Dissertation Committee. Alekseevich, seeking a candidate of philosophical sciences degree in the degree field 5.7.8 philosophical anthropology, the philosophy of culture, on the topic conscience as a religious philosophical problem and existential anthropological analysis, by the act of the academic secretary of St. Petersburg University, Alexander Valentinovich Gnatov, dated 18th of August 2021, I, Grigor Ivanovich Yevlampiev, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor of Russian Department of Russian Philosophy and Culture of St. Petersburg University, appointed chairman of this Dissertation Committee. Other members of the Dissertation Committee include Andrei Evgenievich Zimbuli, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor of the Department of Aesthetics and Ethics of the Russian State Pedagogical University, named after Herzen. Andrei Mikhailovich Sergeyev, Doctor of Philosophical Science, Professor of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, Herzen, the same, Herzen, Russian State Pedagogical University, online in an online mode with us are the following members of the Dissertation Committee: Konstantin Semyonovich Pigrov, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor of the Department of Social Philosophy, and Philosophy of History of Russia, of St. Petersburg University. Can you hear and see us? Yes. Natalia Nikolaevna Rostova, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, Moscow State University, named after Lomonosov. Can you see and hear us? Yes. Kalimasha Kapsamarovna Begalinovna, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Department of Religious Studies and Cultural Studies, Kazakhstan National University, named after Al-Farabi, Kazakhstan. Yeah, can you hear us? Yes. The candidate is Pavel Alexeyevich Schuplov. Also in attendance is the academic advisor of Pavel Alekseevich, Boris Vasilievich Markov, Professor of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, St. Petersburg University. In order to improve the quality of communication, dear colleagues who are in online mode with us, please switch off your microphones, but don't forget to turn them off when you're getting the floor. Also, I would like to mention that an audio and video recording is taking place, and a live broadcast is taking place on the website of St. Petersburg University. This is all accompanied by a simultaneous interpretation between English and Russian. Also, on the webpage of this session, there's an online, there's an email address where you can send questions, but the questions should be signed and with affiliation. And these questions will be relayed to me by technical services, and I'll read them. Well, all the questions should, all questions which are intended for being read during this session need to concern the dissertation or the presentation of the dissertation, and should not be anonymous, in accordance with the procedure of awarding in St. Petersburg University of academic degrees of Candidate of Sciences and Doctor of Sciences. Not less than 2/3 of the established membership of the Dissertation Committee, not fewer than 4 people, should be present in order to in order for the dissertation committee session to be legitimate. Our dissertation committee consists of 6 people. All 6 people are present, including 4 members of the dissertation committee in an online mode with us, remote mode with us. And therefore, I'm going to now describe what agenda we have. Short item 1 on the agenda, short presentation of chairman about the presentation of the paperwork that has been submitted by the candidate. Second, a short presentation of the candidate of the key issues tackled in the dissertation, 15 minutes. Questions to the candidates strictly on the presentation, not more than 2 minutes per question. Answers of the applicant, 5 minutes for all questions. Then all members of the dissertation committee will have a chance to present their assessment of the dissertation from their reviews, 10 minutes per speaker. Number 6, the chairman of the dissertation committee will have a chance to spend 10 minutes assessing the dissertation as well. The candidate will answer the questions and the critical remarks, not more than 20 minutes for all. Open floor discussion. All those who would like to ask questions or comment should enter their name into the registry book. Then 2 minutes per speaker, and they should introduce themselves when asking a question, not making a comment, including affiliation. Number 9, the chairman will present questions that have arrived via email on the website, and 2 minutes. If a question takes more than 2 minutes to read, it will not be read. Answers of the candidate, 2 minutes per question. Then the floor is given to the academic supervisor of the dissertation, not more than 3 minutes. Then members of the dissertation committee will have a chance to declare a break for discussion, to discuss the verdict behind closed doors with the broadcast switched off, 5 minutes. Then open roll call voting, and then decision is taken, and then the concluding statement from the candidate, 2 minutes. Do we have any objections or questions as to the procedure? Then if no questions, then I would like to start with item 1. Dear members of the dissertation council who are in the hall, please turn off their mobile phone, and those who are in the remote mode with us, please don't turn off your mobile phone for emergency communication, but turn off your microphones. Thank you. Now, item 1, the dissertation of Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov, seeking an academic degree of candidate of philosophical sciences in the degree field 5.7.8, philosophical anthropology and philosophy of culture, on the topic consciousness, religious and philosophical problem, and existential anthropological analysis, was accepted for defense by the Act of Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University on the 19th of August 2021. Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov wrote his dissertation in St. Petersburg University as a doctoral student. His academic advisor is the Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Professor of the Department of Philosophical Anthropology, Boris Vasilyevich Markov. The number of publications that have been submitted is 3. In the refereed academic journals from the list approved by the Ministry of Science of the Russian Federation. all of them from that list. All the other documents are in full compliance with procedure, and the copies are in the personal file of the candidate, are available from a member of from the office for Dissertation Committee management who is present here. Will have any questions on the full list of documents? Do we need to go through it? No. Therefore, I'm going to give the floor to Pavel Alekseevich. The floor is yours for your presentation. Dear colleagues, according to the procedure, I'm going to present the text with the most pertinent conclusions of my research. Today, at the end of the first quarter of the 21st century, in connection with the necessary changes taking place currently in philosophical anthropology and social thought, there's an active revision of the concept of man, which is being replaced by another anthropological reality, post-human. Following Nietzsche, who predicted the death of God, which is interpreted as murder, as a necessary consequence of social changes at the end of the century, Foucault expressed fears about the death of a person, of man, that, like a drawing on the coastal sand, would be washed away by a wave of indifferent time. In this regard, there's an ambiguous situation with a catastrophic potential, which we have designated as an anthropological crisis, and which requires professional philosophical reflection. Since in the understanding of conscience, outdated concepts continue to dominate, subjecting conscience to external moral authority, the purpose of my dissertation research was to establish the following tasks. First, analytical revision of the phenomenon of conscience. Second, connecting individual and social stages of conscience. 3. Identification of conscientious archetypes associated with the diverse cultural activities of an individual. To achieve results in the fulfillment of the assigned task, the methods of philosophical anthropology, phenomenology, and analytical psychology were used. Since today various projects of anthropology without an individual are being expressed with artificial intelligence, cyborgs, and genetic engineering projects, the fears of humanists who are concerned that a human as a concept, phenomenon, anatomy as a species may cease to exist, seem justified. The Dehumanization Project involves the gradual reduction of mental archetypes associated with the cultural activity of a human to predetermined behavioral algorithms, which inevitably following the eradication of conscience will lead to the degradation of social institutions. Thus, the anthropological crisis can be understood as a challenge to a person, a test of their conscience. Should be emphasized that this challenge has direct existential tension and urgent socio-political significance. In the spirit of eschatological anthropology, the crisis interprets as the onset of the last times. Humanity runs the risk of not just disappearing like a drawing in the sand, but moving to another stage of evolution, which is on a universal scale is not good or evil, but something else indicated in the destiny of man to become what he is. The description of his spiritual evolutionary process of becoming human was given by the Catholic anthropologist Pierre Teilhard de Chardin and his work, The Phenomenon of Man, from a methodological point of view, an interesting parallel between the work of de Chardin, published in 1956, the work of the Russian scientist of Lev Semyonovich Berg, Nomogenesis, evolution based on laws, published in 1922. The first pre-censored edition of Berg's work contains a criticism of Darwinism with a certain bias towards theology. Thus, even before de Chardin, Berg tried to reconcile the naturalistic and theological paradigms. The prospect of the disappearance of man in the millstones of evolution, which is becoming more and more obvious every day, testifies to the riskiness riskiness and crisis of human existence. A person whose existence is now and then called into question is a crisis being. This is also the modern man. After Nietzsche, man finally begins to be understood as an eccentric peripheral being. With the death of God, man is no longer at the center of the universe. In a situation of disorientation and loss, without relying on the inner center of which God previously acted, as a person, as a crisis creature, risks, if not finally ceasing to exist, then be in a very sieged position. Since the need for the development of conscience is society, the creation of appropriate institutions and organizations. The project of dehumanization is associated with the elimination of the fundamental duality of a consciousness, but consciousness from its very foundation turns to the I of a person, to the self, and as a call to care. Thus, through the anthropological crisis, the potential of conscience is actualized, which ensures the possibility of personal self standing before internal or an external authority, which is the state, church, or society itself. Standing before the transcendental conscience as the highest internal authority helps to resist the external authority as the neutral, natural, and inalienable right of every person to defend, which is the main duty of everyone. Nikolai Berdyan wrote, "Your conscience should never be determined by sociality, social groupings, opinions, society. It should be determined before the depths of the spirit. That is, be free, be standing before God. You must be a social being. That is, from a spiritual freedom to determine their attitude to society and to social issues. The prospect of the disappearance of man and the millstones of revolution, which is becoming more and more obvious every day, testifies to the riskiness and crisis of human existence. A person whose existence now and then called into question is a crisis building." And this problem is can be replaced with nothing, because this is a problem not only for religious thought but for secular thought. Standing before a transcendental means an ethical choice. The inner voice, the voice of conscience, is the strongest feeling, is a mediator that turns I to self-awareness. Conscience radically turns everything into the inside. So conscience is responsible for the development of our personality, without which no just society is possible. Conscience is always under some external authority, Dalai Lama or the Pope of Rome, but conscience is an esoteric nature, because it's from Greek esoterikos, inner secret. Esoteric teachings from the Middle Ages to our New Age, contemporary New Age teachings, the practice of achieving internal God, and this is often associated with a riot, a rebellion against the state, as it happened in the sects in Russia. And they're not necessarily anarchists or eschatological, which Berdyaev posited as inherent in Russian mentality. For example, conscious anarchism was part of the beliefs of Bakunin, Kropotkin, and Tolstoy. Conscience as part of desire or will. You have to have a desire, which Heidegger called the desire to have conscience, which predetermines attention to the self. Pure conscience, in its proper sense, compared to those things that oppose it, gives being the goodness. Conscience gives peace of mind and the togetherness with a deity, or with a person with himself. This meaning, this more than that, the knowledge gives a man extrasensoric capacities. This is said in Plato, on the nature of demonic in some of his dialogues. In depending on the conditions, conscience can be called the best eye, demon, or angel. Whatever it is, whatever you call it, this is the strongest feeling that indicates the condition of the development of a person. Only the development and cultivation of conscience in a society can contribute to the opposition of man to the entropy of time, because conscience prevents a person to lose humanity and to prevent him from becoming an object of algorithm. If people cannot withstand entropy, they will not survive, as Foucault said. Then I would like to answer the reviews, because as part of the main presentation, as I understand that whatever you say, I also prepared answers to the. First you will have to review the. First you will have to hear the reviews and then answer the critical remarks. Members of the Dissertation Committee, do you have any questions on the presentation? Not more than 2 minutes per question. One question about Berg's work. You refer to him, right? I refer to not to Berg first and foremost. I mentioned him in the context of correlation with Pierre de Chander's work. This question, can you clarify this? Because Berg's work is now in the trend, and Bibihinsky put a new twist on it, and what is the context that you refer to Berg's work in? The reconciliation of naturalistic and theological paradigms. If you look at the preface to Nomogenesis in the first edition, 1922, there's a criticism of Darwinism from a theological perspective, as I mentioned, because, Dashadan is my main source, and Berg presaged Desjardins in this field, and this is a return to Lamarckism, behaviorism, as as a resurgence of behaviorism as an opposition to Anarchism and Darwinism. I have a question. You have two provisions in the dissertation and in your presentation. First, you say about the religious substantiation of conscience. Consciousness standing a man before God and accepting deity. And then the second, next chapter, you look at secular existentialism, and they say the opposite, consciousness standing before nothing. Well, both positions are intertwined because nihilistic philosophy of atheistic for the most part, grew and they replaced God after the death of God with nothing, and therefore whatever you put there is something transcendental, that is standing before a transcendental, about something unknown, and then the human looks into the eye of this awe-inspiring transcendental, and this moral self-determination takes place in this person when they stand before, well, as Berdaev said, is conscience-driven standing. So, in the face of this transcendental, without the beginning, and then this person can take socially responsible decisions. Otherwise, the person will be captive of some public opinion, which is not authentic, because it's not thought through at the existential level. When you said that conscience needs a new treatment, you talked about conscience and different types of social activities, human activities. I cited Jung here, depending on the tradition. Conscience standing before the transcendental is the turning of the person to inner self, or whether demon or angel or something, or godly beginning. From talking with which the person develops whatever demon or guardian angel or God. In different paradigms, this can have different images, but this is the person stands before this object and looking in this abyss of the absolute, which can be expressed archetypically, typically in different ways, makes the person reflect on themselves. This is this should turn the person to the humanity. This is a metaphysical. from my point of view, this turning to this deity conscience it plays as the main instrument, and well, unfortunately, there's no typology. The description of different archetypes, the dissertation covers it. Archetypes have to do with deities, usually, with references to the Bible, or angel, or demon, or inner self, or on an analytical way, some inner voice, or some strong feeling. It's a cultural archetype which refers to this transcendental. Thank you very much. Enough? Any other question? To clarify, in the concepts of archetypes are understood by you and depending what form the transcendental is expressed, whatever, depending on the cultural paradigm. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the Dissertation Council? No questions. Online, those are online. No questions, no. Now we turn to the next item. Members of the Dissertation Council will express their assessment of the dissertation by reading from their reviews. The candidate can answer each review in turn, maybe each review. Okay, then critical remarks will be addressed by the candidate. No external reviews have been submitted. Now, all the reviews have been published on the website of St. Petersburg University, and so they've been in open access. Please don't read your reviews in full, but only focus on your critical remarks and questions. Please, Konstantin Semyonovich, are you ready? Konstantin Semyonovich, please turn on your microphone. Konstantin Semyonovich. Please push the I'm ready. How many minutes do I have? 10 minutes. Dear colleagues, I've known Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov since he studied under different teachers. The relevance is there. He tries to work at the interface of two different paradigms, realistic and existential. And he's trying to he look at the phenomenon of conscience from as a complementarity of paradigms of existential and anthropological perspectives. And Schuplov, the conscience is postulated as a concentration of as a technology of concentration, and he tackles theological of conscience. And this unity, as I said, is achieved through a social anthropology. Well, the significance of dissertation is that the social philosophy takes the first stage, and conscience is knowledge, very specific knowledge, and it's a product of the individual and higher entities. And he's trying to, in his dissertation, to transfer to present the person as a social being. Social reflection is a fundamental condition. The conclusions are valid. That point to the practical significance of the dissertation. As far as the theoretical significance, this is talking about the emergence of mass society. For me, the valuable part is that conceptually the pure and not pure conscience are differentiated. Conscience is presented as something, as an internal voice, as the most, as the strongest feeling, as a foundation of a self-standing of a person in the contemporary world, and postulated by him as a universal human value. In society, in consciousness, an individual extends the higher entities, the higher entity to the world. Schuplov unites conscience and daemon as trust in himself, as a fundamental self-respect, as an autonomous, guiding and reasonable beginning. And the fourth there's a naive criticism of our society, associated with globalism, which means the destruction of traditional society and the universal degradation. Fifth, the dissertation, by following the call of conscience, human becomes human, and therefore, by doing it, if every person does it, then a just society is born. And so the goal of the person in this case is to reveal the secret inner self, and the practical significance, the theoretical significance for future research is in the anchoring of conscious in the field, and and through the disclosure and description of the inner voice, genius, daemon, deity, and then an attempt of connecting individual and social strategies of consciousness. I think this is a good work. But drawbacks, philosophical, maybe inexperience. The text lacks some concepts of complementarity that are necessary for the complementarity of social philosophy and anthropological philosophy. And in the presentation, this drawback was corrected. And I also would like to mention Chardin's work and Berg's nomogenesis. Berg's figure is the pride of not only Russian thought but also St. Petersburg thought as a part of Russian cosmism. And now I would like to make the conclusion. The dissertation of Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov on the topic of conscience as a religious philosophical problem and existential anthropological analysis meets the key requirements established by the procedure of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, and therefore Pavel Alexeyevich Schuplov deserves to be awarded the academic degree of candidate philosophical sciences in philosophical anthropology and philosophy culture. Well, the critical remarks had a nature of suggestions, so there were no questions, but I can say that the role of Konstantin Simonovich in my development as a philosopher, in my study at the Faculty of Philology. Thank you very much. Konstantin Simonovich is my mentor. not only for me, but for many students of the world of living philosophy, of the philosophy of life in a broad sense. And so he taught us that, and Konstantin Semenovich was a genius, demon and deity for many students. Yes. Well, the next review is by Professor Bagalieva. Dear members of the Dissertation Committee, the relevance of the dissertation research is obvious, especially in our dehumanized world, which Pavel Alekseevich described a few minutes ago. The problem of conscience is a fundamental category of ethics. This is the most powerful spiritual stimulus of humans as a motive of ethical behavior. What is described in the dissertation in such a good way. The inner voice leads a person to act ethically, and the author of the dissertation, conscious is a form that develops an autonomous personality. The problem of conscious has been dealt with in the East. Prophet Muhammad, what is worse than death is to lose conscience. Khudaberdiyev said, humanity and good heart can be called by one term in the Russian conscience. In unison of what we just said, great Russian philosophers, Berdyaev said, sociality derived from knowledge of an individual time of the soul should be determined by conscience. Before who spoke, the speaker who spoke, and Konstantin Semenovich said it very well. What I was going to say, I just want to add that the research is significant. It is a comprehensive interdisciplinary study, because it addresses not only religious ethics but also secular ethics. But unfortunately, the biases towards religious ethics. It tackles different sciences with human knowledge and human vision, and it has many. The research has a traditional structure. 2 chapters, introduction, and the list of sources. The list of sources is quite lengthy, 122 titles. 6 are in foreign languages. Pavel Alekseevich introduces into the academic circulation little studied sources in foreign languages. The author substantiates all the all the goals he sets, and the hypothesis. I will go over every paragraph or chapter. I will just say that on the whole, all the sides, dimensions of conscience are addressed in full by the author. I like the second chapter best, where practical solutions to the problem of conscience as the meaning and purpose of a human life. Pavel Alekseevich shows that conscience is determined as a principle of coexistence or co-presence, and the author has done great analytical work at studying study philosophical concepts as a compromise of finding a harmony with between soul and body. And the third chapter, existential eschatology of conscience. In it, he uses a wide spectrum of literature, studies and literature of representatives of Martin Heidegger, of existential philosophy, and Russian philosophers, famous philosophers like Berdayev, Nikolai Berdayev. A second, non-transparency, double non-transparency is tackled through in relation to conscience through the teachings of Nikolai Fedorov and Vladimir Solovyov, and this is a great achievement for the author. On the whole, the author carries out a philosophical, anthropological, religious study of conscience, reconstructs the concept, and giving religious, theological, and philosophical meanings of the concept. The number of sources is sufficient for this study, and that allows the author to present the phenomenon in a comprehensive manner. Of course, I would like to some drawbacks, some controversial points. One of the most fundamental ones include, first of all, when analyze the anthropological crisis of conscience, you should have referred to the teachings of existential philosophy, Heidegger, Camus, Sartre, and modern philosophical anthropology. And I commend the author that he referred to the representatives of the Silver Age in Russian, and also the in-depth level, who at an in-depth level study the problems of anthropology of conscience. Secondly, conscience is a subjective awareness by the person of their duty and their responsibility before society. In it, a man stands face to face to himself and can be absolutely sincere, and therefore conscience opens the eyes of man, of the person, at his own ethical substance and value. Third, the dissertation research makes a bias on the religious description of the problems. Of course, Christianity, especially Orthodox Christianity and other religions, have made an undoubtable contribution to it, but because the topic of the dissertation is conscience as a religious and philosophical problem, you should have referred to some contemporary secular research. And I would like to refer you to the monograph of Berbeshkina, Conscience as an Ethical Category, 1973. Well, there are some other drawbacks, but nevertheless, I would like to state that the dissertation of Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov on the topic conscience as a religious and philosophical problem and existential anthropological analysis complies with the key requirements of the procedure of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, and therefore this is because it's a scientific breakthrough, scientific work. Therefore, I would like to state that Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov deserves to be awarded an academic degree of Candidate of Philosophical Sciences in the degree field 09.00.13 Philosophical Anthropology and the Philosophy of Culture. The clauses number 9 and 11 of the procedure have been met. So this is my conclusion of the assessment of the dissertation. Thank you for your attention. And should you have any questions, I would like to answer them. Thank you, Kalimash Kamsamaran. I would like to hear. Thank you, Kalimash Kamsamaran, for your very valuable is your suggestion to refer to Muslim religion and heritage. Thank you very much for your citation from a Kazakh philosopher, in which he says that death is better than a life without death. Death is a life without conscience. Death is death with conscience gives a person's life, a person's soul to live eternally, and a death without conscience is a death for their soul, and this is a deeper death than death with conscience. This is what I noticed from your recommendations. On the whole, thank you very much for your recommendations to pay attention to Islamic philosophy, Kazakh thinkers, because we build a Eurasian space. This eclecticism in the development of a single structure of functions can be very beneficial. Thank you very much, Konsamar, for this suggestions. Thank you. Thank you for your answers. Dear colleagues, you don't need to read the descriptive part. Please just read your critical remark. Well, Mohammed, strange. You probably misheard. If I hope, yeah. No, Muhammad is not. Kalimash cited Muhammad, not from a Kazakh philosopher. She also cited of some Kazakh philosopher, as far as I heard. A symbol of Shekarim Kudarberdiev is the nephew of the great Abai. This is a closed book for me. Kudaiberdeev, Shekarim Kudaiberdeev. Thank you. Yes, thank you for clarifying the. Andrei Evgenievich, thank you. I would like to note. I would like to ask a question about Carl Gustav Jung, Peter Tchaikovsky, Nikolai Berdyaev, and Jean-Paul Sartre, Jean-Paul Belmondo. I think that we have to be respectful to our culture. Berdyaev and Tolstoy, but Leo Tolstoy doesn't sound as respectful as Jean-Paul Belmondo. Thank you very much for inviting me to enjoy the work, but I will be the one to criticize this work. I am a graduated from the Institute of Philosophy of this university. For me, the reading of this thesis was painful. I didn't take the text positively. You looked at the thesis as a student work, but this is a candidate of a kind of sciences work, and therefore I therefore say that my affiliation of this work is negative. So what goals were set and what goals were achieved, it's up to the candidate to argue. But my consideration on the topic first, when it's conscience as a problem, conscience as a value, not as a problem, as such an achievement, as an instrument, from previous speakers. So conscience is not a problem. Then the formulation of the object and the goals. And well, this he says that conscience is viewed as an individual and super-individual capacity of self-awareness. I analyzed the text. It is full of contradictions, as self-admiring, full of self-admiring. So, for example, what is well, there's so many terms that that are just impossible to understand. But what we see here is the ethics as a science. Receives a new researcher into its vein, but the text of Dissertation is not written in an academic way. The ethics of conscience, what is it? Therefore, conscience is a magic compass of wisdom, and it's a dual magic. Why not three-parted magic? Why? I'm an ethicist by background. For me, ethics is the most important thing. I get confused with every page of this metaphysical festival is the defeat of time. Well, the author of the text is like a butterfly, hopping from flower to flower. Why one subject is chosen for why another, and there are some other other gibberish fragments. Then it talks about heroes. The hero as an object of conscience. Well, good words are said, but why only heroes? Individuals, all individuals have conscience. Well, I tried to read many times some passages. So what's the, he talks about the godly condition of conscience. But what is it? Well, there are many unsubstantiated claims. If you talk to people, to teenagers or elderly, but this is an academic work. In order to understand his place, a human must turn into its opposite, his positive opposite. So what is his positive? When the shadow becomes autonomous, this is a way for self-cognition. I don't know about as a terrorist. esoteric adherents in the Higher Education Committee, but I analyze a dissertation. What shadows are we talking about here? I never seen a detached shadow. We must turn our life into fighting the government or the authority. Why politics? Why not medicine or science of culture where conscience must live? Conscience unites a man with love, and when I enter a bus, I trust the driver. When I enter the dental office, I trust the dentist. It's a protest for the sake of protest. So reasoning takes page after page, but about conscience. But conscience was not determined yet. So there's no classification. So the author uses metaphors. Pure conscience brings man to deity, and makes the man mad. Well, Heidegger said that pure conscience is the product of the devil, but in Schweitzer, and Schweitzer substantiates his idea, but he never talks about madness. Well, I'm restricted. Well, the author says that proper conscience is restrictive. Well, I am not restricted when I come here. Well, I hope I will be invited again, but I'll be the one. Unfortunately, I just have to state that this text is weak. When the people whom I mentor write something illogical, Konstantin Simonovich, well, you're setting up your own supervisor. Well, there was a moment in my life, and I once read a work, and I said that whatever you think of it, I will vote against it. And Konstantin Simonovich said that that work was admitted for defense because the author of the work didn't follow advice at all, stopped following the advice at all. I don't want this to happen today. Well, when we and another quote, to live by conscience is to be honest with himself and with others. Well, if you read from Solzhenitsyn about, but you're a philosopher, well, a robber is also very honest. Give me your jewelry, money, and ethics studies the world as a multidimensional thing, because morality and ethics are different, and so honesty is not the key factor. And you are not Solzhenitsyn. You're not a moralist. You're a philosopher. There are many names for those who are unhuman, gypsies and mermaids and so on. Well, and the conscience is ambivalent. Conscience, what I expected you to show us a classification of conscience. Well, the conscience of a criminal is who is an inmate. They would say, well, it's beyond me to do this, and so this is his conscience. But is it elevating? The text is a vivid example of how not to write a dissertation. The literature is abundant, but you have to review it to make your own design. When you identify different traits, at least you put them down in an alphabetical order on paper. Fortunately, I won't read this work. We'll name this work again. I will just say that this is not a good work. I'm ashamed of it. But I hope that you would make it better if you work harder on it. It's in a syncretic way. Thank you very much, Andrei Evgenievich. I'm very flattered that you looked at my dissertation so closely, but what can I say? To address your concerns, when I presented my presentation here, I of course had read your presentation, your review. But what I heard right now, well, I can cite myself as far as the I would like to answer Andrei Evgenievich. Since the genre also presupposes a separate part devoted to response to creative, I will try to respond to Andrei Evgenievich Zambuli. Is conscience a problem? For whom? Personally, it seems to me that this is a socio-cultural personal value. Despite the fact that conscience is often viewed almost as a synonym for shame, in our opinion, at least superficial, conscience is a much more controversial phenomenon. Therefore, made an attempt to revise the phenomenon based on some modern data. Despite the fact that conscience is understood as a moral feeling, it can be completely different feeling. In essence, this problem points to the problem of the subject as such. A young noted that conscience is either generally directed against the subject or prepares him with considerable difficulties. Therefore, an objective study of conscience presupposes the maximum moment of the research in the subject, which is conscious as a kind of absolute subject, in which the principle makes the subject paramount. Further, Andrei Evgenievich noted that conscience contributes to the development of the individual, but not autonomous, but including the whole world. But we will answer that also with the question, can the whole world include a non-autonomous, not free, superficial personality? And Andrei Evgenievich asks, maybe not conscious, but shamelessness is a mystical theory, merely. We call conscious a mystical feeling because being in an ambivalent experience of opposite feelings, it introduces a person to be the sacred dimension of being, to eternity, and therefore brahmatalizes human existence on an existential level. Shamelessness, in our understanding, is not a feeling in principle, but there's a certain moral characteristic of an act, a thought. Well, there Evgenievich emphasizes that a person is not autonomous. Well, so only autonomous personality can include the whole world. A disoriented personality is not capable. Well, as far as the consciousness is not shamelessness, well, we call it mystical feeling because, as I said, the ambivalent experience of opposite feelings, it introduces a person to the sacred dimension of being, to eternity, and therefore problematizes human existence on an existential level. Shamelessness, in our understanding, is not a feeling in principle, but there's a certain moral but it is a certain moral characteristic of an act, a thought. Then Evgenievich asks, what is the opposite of the how does conscience evaluate the outside world, the whole world? Since consciousness constitutes a human personality, and a developed personality accepts everything, that is, in Heidegger words, there is a total yes to the world, then perhaps self-esteem and the evaluation of the external world are processes interconnected through conscience. This was I wrote. Well, it's hard to answer the questions that magic complex. Why so much magic? Magic compass is used in the context. Is a definition of Victor Hugo. Conscience is a magical compass of the world of the unknown, uncharted. Maybe it's an artistic definition, but then the context. But you have to look at the context. But it's a relevant definition. Why politics through conscience? Why not other spheres? Why is it not a prism of looking at other things like healthcare and others? Because the situation today is such that the anthropological crisis is social and healthcare is a social sphere. We have to do with some ideology. The conscience of man, if we refer to refer to gives you ability of seeing through things. Doctors are dependent on the state. Not all of them, of course. Some work in the private sector, but well, this is a debatable area, of course. But don't want to dwell on it. But the conscience determines an attitude, personal attitudes to social issues, including politics, including healthcare or medicine, whatever. Well, this is an evaluative statement, of course, subjective statement. This can be. This is where I will stop. Okay, thank you. Are you satisfied? Yes. Then we continue. Natalia Nikolaevna Rostova. Dear colleagues, can you hear me? From my point of view, the dissertation of Pavel has relevance and novelty, and partially Pavel Alekseevich described this relevance in his presentation, and this reflected in my review. A traditional philosophy made a discovery that human doesn't exist. In a philosophical the European philosophy said that projects spring up, post-humanistic projects, as a type of discourse. On the one hand, European dark ontologies, unhuman anthropology, and other projects, and that are directed at stripping philosophy of the right to ask questions about man. The object of anthropology is everything but man. Any human agents from animals to words. But this is the death of man. There are also attempts of trying to find an adequate language to describe man. This is the way Russian philosophy is moving. Sergei Kharuzhi, deceased, Martynov, Moscow Anthropological School, that has to do with with our department. There's a plethora of Russian philosophers, not so many in European philosophy, that are engaged in developing the subjectiveness. There's a fight of discourses in the sphere of philosophical anthropology. When philosophical anthropology is trying to empty itself, throughout man, and in this heated fight, this dissertation appears, and that is presented by Pavel. What I liked is that Pavel Alekseevich is trying to return to philosophical anthropology and its original subject, man, and trying to find an adequate language to describe man. In the 20th century, Scheler and Plessner used prescription languages, and that they bore no fruit. We know so much about man, but we don't know what or who man is, and what can give merit, what we can give merit for to Pavel is that he returns this traditional subject to the anthropology, philosophical anthropology, because he looks at conscience not as an ethical or social phenomenon of communication, which is absolutely true, but puts an emphasis on it as an anthropological phenomenon, and by referring to the fundamental principle of anthropology as the duality of man. Man is the only creature on earth who can be bigger or smaller than himself. Like he can grow above himself, and this, of course, is derived from the Russian religious philosophy, and also Russian literature, Dostoevsky, etc., and Russian religious philosophy, Beredev. And this is a good phenomenon as the principle of duality of humans works. We come to the conclusion that we cannot reduce man to an algorithm and equate him to other objects that is being done by post-humanist literature. As Kant said, as the core of the problem of conscience, pricks of conscience are pain. Kant says that in the criticism of practical reason, critique of practical reason, freedom is the key property of man. So man does things out of his will for morality, for responsibility, not because of duty, not because of responsibility. Man is free. This is a vicious circle. He said, esoterically, we cannot measure this freedom, but it exists in us. This is a metaphysical, esoteric question, not being capable of being verified. Pavel Alekseevich steps aside and looks at it from from aloof, but also tries to get away from nationalist perspective of looking of man. In this case, he says that man has a self-internal reason to act, not external reason to act. We understand conscience as a primary attitude to himself, and then this is a mediator of our attitude to the world. And this is how we can, and if we look at this, this is how we can evaluate a person. I think that my work, my assessment is that the work of Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov, Conscience as a Religious and Philosophical Problem in Existential-Anthropological Analysis, meets the key requirements of St. Petersburg University procedure of awarding academic degrees. There are no critical remarks, but I don't have any in my reviews. I think we are following an unusual format, therefore I just didn't write them. My critical remarks are just cues for discussion, transcendental God, to nothing, experience of death. Maybe these things should have been formulated in a clearer way. Thank you very much. Talia Nikolaevna, I can only thank my reviewer for the concordance with of her thoughts with my thoughts, and I hope that we will be able to discuss this at conferences, and we have a common vector that the approach to conscience as an anthropological issue through which a person can returns to the primary source constituting the human person. And this concept is under crisis, which allows us to treat the situation as a fight of man for the right to be. This is not a philosophical problem, but as a social economic problem, political problem. Thank you very much for your Natalia, for your review. In the context of what I said, when we look at conscience, when we reflect on conscience, we are inadequate. We look at conscience from ideological positions. Any problem can be, any phenomenon can be, any very transparent or clear position can be viewed from subjective and philosophical position. And this dissertation is philosophical anthropology and dissertation. I think dissertation in this sense is tenable. It has a structure, it has ideas. Maybe I will look at some drawbacks. The first one, the term esoteric is viewed as something apocryphal, but this is part of Adventism and Sufis, and this is a practice of ascetic practices, and I think that you should find the correct original definition of terms or concepts. And on the whole, I still think that the dissertation of Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov has an inner logic, presents a combination of findings, and this dissertation meets the key requirements of the procedure of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, and therefore Pavel Alexeyevich Schuplov deserves the right to be awarded the academic degree of Candidate of Philosophical Sciences. Please, Pavel Alexeyevich. Thank you very much, Andrei Mikhailovich. I would like to stress what you said about that conscience, even if we don't notice it, can be a product of ideology, not a phenomenon of philosophical but ideological concept, which we deal with. From a philosophical reflection point of view, this is a very interesting object of criticism. Conscience as an ideological concept, and philosophical reflection should be aimed at this. Well, this is my opinion, of course, but in modern world, philosophy can serve as a force that criticizes ideology, because ideology can be understood as a certain counterproductive thing for conscience, and but ideology presents itself as philosophy. What we see among contemporary philosophers, and therefore philosophy becomes very, very relevant, because it's sabotaged by ideology, because philosophy, in this way, philosophy must fight for its existence, trying to take philosophy out of the closet and of the study ivory tower, and because there's a fight, because there's a fight between men and threats presenting by technogenic civilizations. Technogenic civilization. My review, I will just read my critical remarks as a chairman. The dissertation of Pavel Alexeyevich is dedicated to a very relevant philosophical problem, the explication and metaphysical meaning of the phenomenon of conscience in the context of new ideas that derives from philosophy of the 20th century. The relevance of the work is determined that by the understanding of conscience. That's the understanding of conscience is enveloped in outdated categories and concepts that have to do with medieval philosophy, with its substantialism in the understanding of man, and thealism of understanding society and history. Well, the conscience well, you can say that that a new thing, conscience conscience builds itself, and so therefore it helps a human to look at himself. And of course there are some drawbacks. On page 50, ethical views of Drobnitsky, the dissertation, the author of the dissertation, looking at this these views, tries to develop the conclusions of the scholar, saying that in society no authority can be protected or exempt from criticism from the position of ethics or morality, and that that society should bring up in people such conscience which can be trusted without external control. But he thinks that that's what Drobnitsky means. No, that's what he says, and he then makes a conclusion that what Drobnitsky means is that people must become society, and society people, and the authority must be in the hands of the people and not vice versa. And people or a nation must elevate itself to the level of authority, therefore by eliminating this authority. I think that there's also you can hardly agree with the fact that revolt or fighting with God of the aristocrats of spirit or partisans, as the author of the dissertation calls this avant-garde of humanity, can be called pure morality, or even godly conscience. That's page 74. But on pages 73 and 74, Pavel Alekseevich refers to his own paper. In the paper, Festival and Risk, the creativity of life, he said festival is a break with reality, with everyday reality. It's opposite, and everyday reality determines the existence of festival, and on the other, vice versa, a festival is predetermined by everyday reality. The opposites predetermine each other. Well, this is very strange, and maybe the author should be more modest and critically assess his own achievements. But nevertheless, all the drawbacks that I have in my review don't diminish the quality of the dissertation, and I would support the awarding of the degree to Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov. Thank you. I would like to thank for you for the criticism. Well, my immodesty can be explained that I have many citations of my previous work. This was the condition of my dissertation, my previous research prerequisite, and I looked at my previous works, and this was what you cited was a paper I published in a collection of research articles, The Creativity of Life, and I cited it. Well, it's used in the context. Well, because I was required to refer to my previous research as far as the anarchistic conclusions. I just want to say that these conclusions that I derive from Dehumanization, and maybe they're not substantiated enough. I tried to analyze this classical understanding of conscience. I tried to use that optic of understanding, optics of understanding conscience, the phenomenology of conscience, to treat this phenomenon and to treat what Drobnitsky said from the point of view of my values, and my values are based on the sources from and the antiquity, and from this my view of esotericism and so on. And well, in Russia we know that there was a moot in Novgorod, Great Novgorod, and this is when people elevate themselves to the level of authority, and this is a very relevant point of view now, because the Russia is a federation that consists of different regions as subjects. And federalism, the philosophy of federalism is unfortunately banned now as by criminal law, but this is my conclusion. And I think this is still of practical importance for the study of conscience. So this was the last review, and now there's an opportunity for anyone who wants to speak up from the audience? No one. And do we have any questions from viewers and listeners of our session? No questions have been submitted. So next is the short presentation of the academic advisor. Can you hear me well? Thank you. So the defense took place, and I'm very happy that our discussion turned this way, because the candidate took a painful path. I am his third mentor, and like Konstantin Semyonovich. But my problem with him, working with him, I've never worked with the language, and never worked for so long, and I think that this is a very serious problem. Well, it's very hard to talk about what you can't pinpoint, and therefore the drawbacks that Andrei Evgenievich demonstrated, but well, this looks from this is NU. This is also not very good to read the work by bits and pieces. Well, and I was surprised and impressed by Pavel, how he responded. He found words to respond, and we read the text, or any text, whether we understand or we don't understand. Well, some metaphors are understandable, some metaphors are not. I tried to direct Pavel in this direction, to get rid of too many metaphors and put everything in plain language. But my dissertation can be still an example of what we reached in talking about the transcendental. But the Miller and Lenin influenced that conscience as a voice of sincere humanity, and Schuplov believed it, and I think that he is still sensible, but anarchism, the anarchism was addressed quite well, that Russian anarchism is taken up by theoreticians of a network society. This is anarchism is not necessarily an existential rebellion, but also in fact a network phenomenon. What I tried to guide Pavel, and this worked out better, I worked with shame. Shame is a social feeling, but conscience, the voice of a clear conscience, pure conscience, the maybe the critique of pure conscience is an important phenomenon here. We are going to take a decision, but nothing personal. But if we take a negative decision, I think we'll be suffering from pranks of conscience, and I will not. Well, I will not drink myself to death, even if the applicant receives a negative decision. But if it's objective, then it can have a therapeutic effect, and I would really advise the applicant to look at the variability and the different variants of conscience. Pure conscience is fine, but you have to look at different other types. So whether we share Shuplov's opinion, I can just say that he has spent a lot of time writing this dissertation. We've been in correspondence for many years, and even after the dissertation was completed, he's been working on it. And I'm relieved to see that the presentation, the defense was successful. Thank you. So the last point, members of the Dissertation Council committee have the last chance to. Okay, I would like to say one thing. As a summing up of this discussion. With surprise, I understood that the applicant that he cannot, she doesn't differentiate conscience and conscience and conscience as cognition, ability to think. Well, this is a final, because everything that he said can be referred to. I would like to send for Russian culture the unification of conscience and conscience. How do we understand? How we see conscience as by by the color of shame on the person's cheeks. Can I add? Pavel Alekseevich had a lot of contextual definitions, and I understood. I looked at the definition of conscience as a combination of context. So, to sum up the discussion, well, the discussion is over. Before we vote, I would like to ask members of the Dissertation Committee do you have any objections or critical remarks as to the procedure of conducting this session? Technological. Konstantin Semenovich, do you have any objections? Please turn on your microphone. Yes. I have no objections. Kalimashka Samarovna. No critical comments. Andrei Evgenich. Only thanks to the colleagues. Evgeny Nikolaevna, no. No, Andrei Mikhailovich, no critical remarks, and therefore no. The next item, colleagues, we have now an opportunity to interrupt our broadcast and deliberate behind closed doors. No need to do that. No need for such a break. Anyone insisting on the break? No. All right. Then we continue our session. The opinion of each member of the Dissertation Committee is voiced independently. We have 6:08 Moscow time. No, I hope that my watch is correct. Therefore, so the session is continuing. Please confirm that you can see and hear each other. Yes. Good, I can see everybody too. I put the resolution to award Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov an academic degree of kind of philosophical sciences to the vote. So in the academic degree 5.7.8, philosophical anthropology and the philosophy of culture. This is an open roll call vote by when voting in favor, the members of the Dissertation Committee confirmed that the seeker of the academic degree has used research in the correct way, cited research in correct way, including his own research, indicating that this research was published in co-authorship or by himself only. And I would like to remind you that the decision of the Dissertation Committee to award an academic degree is considered positive if not less than over half of the members, but not fewer than 6 members of the Dissertation Council who participated voted in favor. So I'm going to call your names and you will voice your decision. So this is the list that I have here. Member of the committee, Konstantin Semyonovich Pegrov. Can you hear me? I support. I vote in favor. For Andrei Evgenich Zimbuli. It was interesting to hear my colleagues, but I vote against. I vote against the papers week, the thesis is weak. And Natalia Nikolaevich, I vote in favor. Andrei Mikhailovich Sergeyev, in favor. Kalimash Komsomolovna Begalinova, I totally support Pavel Alekseevich. And I, Igor Ivanovich Pavel, also. I don't support. I abstain. I see that one is against, one has abstained, and 4 in favor. And therefore, 4 people voted in favor, against 1 person, and abstained 1 person. The decision to award Pavel Alekseevich Schuplov an academic degree of Candidate of Philosophical Science and degree field 5.7.8 Philosophical Anthropology, Philosophy and Culture has been achieved. It's been taken. Concluding statement. I would like to thank everyone who has been involved. I'd like to thank Boris Vasilyevich, Konstantin Semenovich. These are the people who can help me become what I am and study in depth this issue. I would like to thank all those who are not who's not present. Nikolai Boris Ivanov, who determined my the course of my study, and Vyacheslav Yuryevich Sukhachev, who passed away, who was my first academic supervisor. He gave me great guidance too, and conceptual guidance. I would like to finish here. Thank you. And therefore, to conclude, on behalf of the committee, I congratulate the applicant on the successful defense and being awarded the academic